poker podcast. We don't really have an intro yet.
It's poker podcast?
I don't know. Because, like, Chop It Up, is it a poker podcast or is it just a gambling podcast?
I think it's more just gambling.
Just DGen.
Yeah.
Too bad that's not available. Too late. We already picked Chop It Up.
I like it.
Chop It Up's good.
Right.
Because Chop It Up works for anything, right? Like, Chop It Up's like, all right, you guys are, 4 guys are throwing dice, and then 2 guys winning. Like, all right, chop it up, chop it up, chop it up, chop it up.
Right. Or you're chopping up a pot in poker, or you're chopping up the prize pool of poker,
right?
Or you're chopping stuff in half.
Or you're in your Super Bowl pool, and you're like, all right, chop it up. All right, me and Brandon are going to chop that one up.
Right. I mean, I can't tell you how many times they chop up our 250 promo.
A lot.
Chop it up.
250 promo. That's a good promo.
It's
How long have we been doing that? 2 years or a year and a half? That is one of your best ideas. You get many ideas that I don't give you credit for, and that's one of them.
Like the stacks that are 125 people deep.
I'm pretty sure that was my idea.
I don't think so.
Nah.
I think Pat Norris is Pat's idea.
Damn it.
Because he stole it from like
and then also it was like the worst thing he
room.
said. He was like, dude, he's like, we're giving these guys too many chips now, because the problem is with big stack tournaments is, and this is a segue into our topic for today.
So just screw the intro.
This is the intro.
Right.
So the problem is that people get so many chips now, or want so many chips now in a tournament, that they demand these massive chip stacks, and the structures have been kind of skewed to allow for these larger chip stacks. Certainly the play has changed, but the problem is in the old days, you'd get 20K, 30K in a tournament. Now that's like a normal deep stack, but in the old days, that was a lot of chips.
Tons of chips.
And you'd play for 7 hours on an $80 tournament, because your original stack tournament at CCG was a
$80
monster stack. And you got 30K in chips?
No.
40K in chips.
Incorrect.
100K in chips.
18K.
Jesus.
18K, that's it.
$80 buy-in, 18K, 20-minute levels. It was a massively influential and very busy tournament, right?
Yep. And then it was so busy.
And Pat said it best. He was like, bro, we're giving them so
from
many chips. The problem is they play $80. They play for 6-7 hours, and they go, hey, you know what? That was a good day. I didn't win anything.
Which you generate $15 or $17 rake from.
And that was
over
about
that 6-hour period.
2012, 13, somewhere in there.
Yep, that's about right.
It was right before kind of anything ever thought about
these huge chip stacks. Monster stacks and stuff like that.
So,
because our biggest deep stack was 12K, and our main events were like 20K.
I remember when the original deep stack was 8,000 in chips.
The mini,
it's just called the deep stack. Nope, just called the deep stack. Deep stack originally started with 8,000 in chips. The early bird, you started with 2K in chips.
Right, 2K and a 1K print off add-on.
Yes,
12-minute blinds.
It's insane. Now
they would kill us. They wouldn't even allow. Nobody would play.
They would boycott.
Right. I mean,
they go on strike.
I mean, people should just buy 2 seats at a time.
Do you think charity poker players or poker players in general don't unionize? Because if they turned into some kind of cool Teamster thing, that'd be great.
I mean, they did that. They were like boycotting PokerStars' increase in rake, and they had like a 5K tournament with like $1 million guaranteed, and they were gonna like just so many players like boycotted it that they got smashed on the guarantee. But then there was people that just swooped in and got all the money. This happened. It's a true story.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a bad beat. If you like bad beats, listen to our first episode. Sorry. I'm getting used to this plugging.
So, yeah, it was one of the things we're like, oh, because they took away Supernova Elite. Do you remember when that happened?
Yes.
They took it away, and people had worked all year for it, and it was like November, and they're like, yeah, next year we're not doing it. Oof. So they boycotted this big tournament.
They didn't grandfather in those guys they're going to get, and then nobody for the next year will get it.
That's not the way to do it.
That seems kind of
And
bad.
they doubled the rake. So anyways, people boycotted, and then, but it's like the whole, I took a college course in game theory where it's like, well, if everyone's going to boycott this and there's 500,000 in overlay, you should just deviate and play it.
Right.
And then people start playing it.
It's the old switcheroo.
Yeah, the old switcheroo. Because people are going to go to the socially optimal. I'm air quoting. Which
air quoting doesn't work on an audio medium.
Well, that's why I'm telling them I'm air quoting.
Right. You're saying air quotes.
So anyways, back to the deep stack.
Do you need to actually air quote if you say air quote? Doesn't that, it's like wearing suspenders and a belt?
Yeah, that's true.
So the topic for today is re-entries.
We're just going to re-entries. We didn't finish deep stacks.
Well, yeah. I mean, what else to say?
The problem is now we give them 60,000.
Poker players are spoiled.
Yeah,
and we're spoiled together. I literally, if I went to a horseshoe tournament or a WSOP or HPT or any of these PTs, and you like that?
I do.
And they're like, oh, you get 10K in chips. I'd be like, pfft.
That's literally nothing.
It's nothing.
It's a
What do you mean 10K chips? I don't know how to survive on 10K in chips.
The main event of the
it would be like
WSOP
getting
used to be 10K
old school. You
chips.
got dropped off on a deserted island. It's like, all right, live on 3 oranges and a bottle of water. And now they give you like a crate of food, and they're like, last for 3 days. And you're like, God, how's anybody supposed to survive on all of this stuff?
Right.
And it's like, man,
It's way more than you need.
yeah. In the old days, poker, you got like.
Main event was 10K.
10,000 in chips. You got whatever the buy-in was how many chips you got.
Yep.
So if it's a $1,500 tournament, you got 1,500 in chips.
So when I went and played the WSOP, it was like 2011 because I just turned 21. They had bumped it up to 3 times. So I played at 1,500 and you got 4,500.
Which is pretty.
The main event 30K is still not that much.
And what's it now?
I don't know, 50 or 100.
That's a lot.
Heaps. I think it's 50K now.
I wanted to say it was 60, but that might not be right.
Maybe it is.
No.
I don't know. It's a lot of chips.
Yeah.
Way more than.
So progressively, tournaments have been starting with larger chip stacks. Now, in all fairness, we've also cut out some early levels. We no longer play green chips, and green chips don't exist anymore.
Right.
Which, when you're doing a tournament director's job, that's kind of a bonus. It's one less chip to color up.
I don't think green chips are like almost non-existent anymore in the poker world because they took away the ante, which is really the only need for green chips.
Right.
Quarter ante, 50, 75, 150. The big blind ante just takes care of all that.
Right.
So you don't need green chips. It's
I
crazy.
think the early bird will never not need green chips.
The early bird will need green chips. But, I mean, I don't know. Who knows? In 2030, we might be giving them 10K.
Playing hologram chips.
They might get 10K in early bird.
No, maybe it'll go backwards. Maybe it'll go down.
It should
maybe
go down.
Maybe poker
Like
lifetime
Billy.
is like cyclical.
Like,
you know?
like Billy's always like, give him too many chips.
Yeah, Billy's the best because Billy. I haven't seen him in forever, and talk about sick bad beat stories from that guy. He's the best. I mean, the absolute best. Quick Billy story. He shows up late. He's like, "Can I get into the tournament late?" I was like, "Nah, registration's over. You're past." He's like, "Man, that sucks. My car broke down in the Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru," and I was like, why didn't you just push it out of the way and then come here? Like, that's what I would have done. Like, your car's down, might as well go to a poker tournament, try to win it back.
Sure.
No, his wheel fell off, and it was literally they could not move his car out of the Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru. He said he was literally like at the window. At least he got his coffee and blocked everybody else. But
so did you let him in after that bad beat story or no?
I can't remember.
Okay,
I might have.
Probably. I would.
So yeah, too many chips in play. Changes the dynamic of the structures because now every tournament basically starts 100-100. The big blind ante is huge though, in the sense that I think that increases play, although it's still a new thing.
See, I feel like our tournaments though, and this is, I mean, I guess kind of a knock on them, but I mean, I feel like now with the monster stacks, there's just so much play early and like no play late. Isn't that like not the way you want it to be?
I think that's players in general, though. I think like you can make it. At some people
Like,
always ask like, why do the blinds go up? Because it forces the blinds go up to force you to play. The blinds don't go up for any other reason other than to force players' action. Because if you didn't, people would sit there all day long and not
just wait for
play.
aces. Right. But if everybody has 8 big blinds at the final table,
I mean, at some point, every tournament ends up like that.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I just feel like people like want more play early for some reason.
Yeah, I would rather have more play late.
Right. And like obviously, I think like professionals want more play late. Like they just rearranged all the structures in like the horse events, so there's like, you know, the blinds are like 30 minutes on day 1 and 60 minutes on day 2, and they kind of rush through some early levels because when you're playing for $100,000, they want you to have deeper levels. Which brings us now to re-entries.
Right. Re-entries. Good for poker, bad for poker. What is the...
Good for poker rooms, bad for poker?
Let's look at it 2 ways. As a poker player,
yeah,
I'm buying into a tournament, and I find out it's a re-entry tournament. So now, just so people understand, there are 3 different types of tournaments, right?
Right. Freezeouts, rebuys, re-entries.
Freezeouts, rebuys, re-entries. And the difference is a freeze-out means you get 1 buy-in.
No matter
and
what.
when you're out, you're out.
Come back next year.
It's Thunderdome, folks.
Straight up main event. WSOP
when you're out of the tournament, you out of the tournament. So the main event is the most prestigious and definitely the most known freeze-out tournament. That's just the structure. Now, a rebuy tournament there's a certain period of rebuys where you buy into the tournament, 100 plus 20, right? And then they're $100 rebuys. Typically, in a rebuy tournament, the rebuys are not raked.
Right.
So that is a bonus for the player.
Plus, you get to sit in your same seat.
You stay in your seat, and you just keep yelling, rebuy, rebuy, rebuy.
Reload your chips.
And then somebody comes running over and gives you more chips. Because like now, the PLO tournament at the World Series of Poker circuit at Hammond, I don't go anywhere else. That's the only one I know. They changed that $2,500 tournament. The only time they ever did that $2,500 PLO tournament was the first year. After that, it turned into a $350 with $100 rebuys.
Which I would love that structure so much better than the structure it is now. But
Which one?
I would love I've never played like a $400 buy with $100 rebuys. Like, that seems awesome because you really can just people just go
ripping.
off.
Literally, the first hand, 9 people go all in.
Yeah,
It's fun.
because like you just have so much value in rebuy.
All right,
let's
let's not deviate from the track here. That's a rebuy tournament,
Yes.
and there are pros and cons to it.
Mhm.
And then re-entry is a variation of a rebuy tournament,
Yes,
right? Because some people get confused and they use rebuy and re-entry as the same thing.
Right,
But a
they're not
re-entry basically means it's the combination of a freeze-out and a rebuy.
Yes.
You play in a tournament, you're in table 1, seat 1, you bust, you get up from that seat, you go back to registration, you register as basically a new player. So if you've got to pay rake, you pay rake again. If you're buying an add-on to start, you're paying that add-on again. You go and you just re-enter into the tournament as a new player.
right.
And that's it.
That's it.
And then there's a certain amount of time where late registration and re-entry end at a certain amount of time. What do you keep looking at over there?
There's like 10 squirrels playing like tag, and they're
How
like
is it possible that I'm not facing the window and now you just saw 10 squirrels playing?
tag. They're jumping from tree to tree. It's crazy down
There's
over
one
there.
tree out there.
Well,
Oh, back on the prairie
Yeah.
path thing?
yeah, they're deep in the. You see them or no?
No.
Okay, well they're hiding. They're just going crazy.
All right. Maybe we'll throw a squirrel in the new logo.
Oh, that'd be cool.
That would be
Just
cool.
Chop it in half.
Chop it
for
in
one.
half. Whoa. All right. I don't want to get listed in some kind of
PETA, we're out. Yeah.
So let's hear Brandon's thoughts. Brandon's thoughts of the week. What is your thoughts on a re-entry tournament?
First,
Do you want to give us like,
they're good for. Oh, okay, go ahead.
I was going to say,
what?
like, should we have like a format? Like you go, I give it a, Presidente
Oh, like
gives
a
it like.
score?
Yeah, I don't know if it's score is appropriate. Whatever. Do whatever you want. I got nothing.
Yeah, I don't even.
Re-entry.
I was going to give him a rookie score, and then he was going to be mad when he listens to
Right.
it. So I don't want to.
Yeah,
do
don't
that.
do that.
All right, so
Don't pigeonhole ourselves into
Yeah, I
a
gotcha.
shitty score here.
right, rebuy tournament, re-entry tournaments are
As a player, good or bad?
good for the players that are properly rolled for the tournament. They're like good for pros.
So it's good with.
Well, I mean, it's bad for poker. It's good for, like, if I had to break it down, it's like
All
it's
right,
good
break
for
it
the
down.
pros and bad for the. It's good for the pros and it's good for the poker rooms, but it's bad for the game of poker and bad for recreational players.
All right, so give it to us. Why is it bad for recreational players?
Because they just flew to Vegas to play this $3,000 tournament that they saved up for because they only play 100s and maybe occasional
or
300.
they played free poker, won a $3,000 tournament voucher to play in a WSOP event. So the guy literally spent 6 months in a bar playing and drinking
Right.
shitty food and drinks at a bar that he didn't really want to go to.
So now
but
he gets
wants
his
to play
one
free poker.
shot and his
He's
one
got
dream.
one arrow
Yeah.
to shoot, and then you got. I hate to say Daniel Negreanu because he's actually moderately opposed to reentry, but
He
then
is.
you get
Just
you
a
know,
pro, a grinder,
some-
a circuit or a tournament
who's
guy.
got the backers and the ability to
Right.
play a 3K and have 3 or 4 bullets.
Yeah,
I mean, he's
unlimited.
ready to fire 15K into this tournament 5 times. He's willing to enter,
Right.
and for him it may or may not be profitable. We'll get to that later, but the difference
So that's
is
a huge
that,
advantage for that guy and a huge disadvantage for our free poker friend
and why is that bad for poker in general?
because all the money's going to go to the pros.
And eventually the pools dry up, and
Right.
then the pros then the pros are just playing against pros.
Which then nobody has an advantage. And
No,
it's bad
well,
for-
not only that, but like the poker economy kind of dries up,
Well, yeah.
right? Like
Because
you
why would
need-
I don't play in games that are just a bunch of
No.
pros.
You need to be able to There's got to be some whales. We talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
We when we do commentary, we talk about it. You need whales. You need fish. You need nits. You need pros. You need guys who think they're pros, but they're really fish.
Those are bad rags.
We need I mean, you need all of these different dynamics at a poker game to make it a good game for everybody, where everybody's excited to play, and B, it keeps the money going, right? Because otherwise, eventually, if you played the same 10 guys, the best player ultimately is going to win. I'm not claiming who is the best player, but whoever ends up being the best player at that table is going to win more money over the long run. It's like beating the rake. You can't beat the rake. If 10 guys played the same game, eventually, if you just play long enough,
this is what I was saying. There's no
all the
advantage.
money's going to get
We're
raked
all just
up.
going to lose.
Right. So
this is like poker in the 80s, where like Doyle Brunson would just win every tournament because he was better. If like there wasn't any new players, people wouldn't keep going back and playing.
So I think that's the other thing too, right? It's the idea of what makes the main event so great and so cool is that I can pay 10 grand, which is a lot. Daniel Negreanu pays $10,000. Doyle freaking Brunson pays $10,000. Dewey Unger, if he was alive, would pay $10,000. Everybody's in for the same amount, and you only get one chance.
Yep.
Right? So even the average Joe, your Chris Moneymakers of the world, who actually did it, I mean, he can fumble his way, and not that I'm saying he fumbled. I'm just saying average Joe poker player who plays free poker could conceivably play free poker, get into the regionals, win that, go to the national, win that, which is such a pipe dream.
Right.
You know how I feel about free poker,
Yep.
even though we attempted to do it. They get into the main event, and they can. It's a one and done.
Right.
Where you get a guy who's, I keep gravitating towards Daniel Negreanu. Phil Ivey, let's throw him under the bus a little bit.
Okay.
You get a guy like Phil Ivey who's a multimillionaire, and he's playing in a 10K. If they could rebuy into or re-enter into the main event, they'd fire 20,
30, 20 bullets easily.
I mean, because it's the main event, and those guys want to win it because it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It would take away from the terms a little bit. So I think in general, re-entries are bad when you look at it this way, but then I think part of the reason, too, where it comes from is that it's the late entry. Poker players, do you remember the old days? Like, you had a much smaller window to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a difficult thing. So that's a benefit of re-entries.
These huge, massive prize pools come because of the re-entries.
Correct.
I mean, if you just look at a small scale CCG, I mean, we had 100.
Look at the early bird.
Look at the stack. We had 125 people. How many like actual players? 80, 90.
No,
I mean, even if you say 90.
I think it was 90, maybe 100. No, probably 90. Maybe
Right.
I think there was 10 tables at one time. So
That's probably around.
there
90.
would have been more re-entries because it was so busy. They were at max capacity that they couldn't.
Okay, so let's go to the early bird.
So say
There's
the early bird.
usually like at Tavern on the Grange, there was about 5 tables, but not all the way full of unique players.
Right.
We ended with 75.
70, I think.
70.
Whatever. I mean, gambler's mentality.
I was trying to exaggerate.
Right.
I knew it was 70.
Everybody does.
Jeez.
Your $50 winner in blackjack turns into I want like $80 bucks,
Right.
$1,000, $1 million.
So, that really swells the prize pool because honestly, the prize pool would be way less if everybody just bought in once. The early bird, would be $250, $300 to the winner. So because they can re-enter, and re-entry means less in those small buy-ins because everyone there can afford 4 buy-ins, pretty much, relatively speaking.
But again, there's still an idea here that the rich benefit from, and I'm using rich as an
Bankrolled players.
Correct. Players who have the ability and the willingness to fire multiple times into a tournament to try to go. Because, I mean, how many times have you played in a small tournament and it's like, I got to get third place to break even?
Yeah, but see, that I was hoping you'd say that because that's a terrible way of looking at it.
Okay. Why?
Because, this is, the way that all these pros that re-enter look at it, it's like it's a brand new tournament for them. They have the ability to...
Oh, I got
They
you.
have the ability
We've talked about this
to
before.
play this 1650 5 times. They just walked in the door for time, which is a re-entry. They're a new player every single
Same
time.
thing that we argued about, that if I want to bet on a coin flip, it's 50-50. It does not matter what has happened the last 5 times the coin has flipped. Even though the last 4 times you and I have flipped, it has been heads. And if you take a larger view of this statistics, right, it's very unlikely that it's going to be whatever I said, heads again, right?
Right.
But it doesn't matter. The coin doesn't know that. It's 50-50. So you're saying as a poker player and you play in the early bird and you brick and then you buy it again, and you brick, and you buy it again, and you brick, and you buy it again, and you brick, and you buy it again. You didn't lose. You're not into this tournament for $100. This is a $20 tournament. I'm in for $20, and if I win $400, I won $400.
Right.
Not, it will really cost me $100, because at that point, then you got to start going, well, I spent $8 in gas, and I bought food, and it's just like it goes down and down and down. And
you can't look at it like that. You got to look at it like, okay, like say the old guy that shows up and only buys in once to the early bird. It's like he showed up for a month every Friday and played Friday the 1st, Friday the 8th, Friday the, I can't do math, times 7. 15th and 22nd and 29th, and he played all 5 of those Fridays and lost every time, and then won the early bird on the 6th time. It's the same thing as you firing all 5 bullets on Friday, and then, on your
playing once a month.
And your 6th bullet you win. You and the guy have the same, money won and lost. You actually probably have a little better because you didn't drive there 5 times,
or eat all those times,
and stuff like that. So
you have to count that as part of your expenses.
which makes rebuy so bad because now it's Daniel Negreanu times 5 versus Free Poker Joe Schmo times 1. You already can't beat Daniel Negreanu. You're already at a disadvantage.
So the variance goes up. It's harder to cash.
They can gamble more because, and all of a sudden they're in 60-40s that they wouldn't be in because they can just reload and.
Do you watch the Daniel Negreanu vlogs? I do. I like them.
I sometimes do. I don't religiously go through them all.
So I liked watching the European one because he normally just vlogs for the summer. And then we don't hear from him again until next WSOP.
Right.
But this year, because he was trying to do the Player of the Year, which turned out to be a huge debacle.
Huge.
He vlogged in Europe, and he only went to Europe because that's where the Player of the Year ends, and that's the last chance to win points. So he was doing stuff to do it, and this is part of why the re-entry stuff got brought up, because he's like, I am buying into a tournament leaving because if I just blind off and I get into the money, I get a couple of points, and that's worth. It's not worth him to play the tournament, but it's worth him to buy in, let it blind off, and spike 1 or 2 points by min cashing.
Right. Come in day 2, or not even play day 1, play this other one day 1, but yeah.
Right. Remember, Alan Kessler was like all over him, saying like, you should be playing this, you should be doing this, you should just be buying in, building up a stack because it's a re-entry tournament. Like, try to fire a couple of times. Like, did you see in the short deck? I don't even know how many times he was in, because that game's insane.
That game's stupid.
It's insane.
It's awesome.
It's basically
PLO with 2 cards.
No, I don't. It's basically flips. You just jam it in, flip it over, and see who wins.
The equities run so close.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't even matter.
Jack 10 is better. Jack 10 suited is better than Ace King.
It's like it's wild.
Right.
But super fun. Anyways, back to re-entry tournaments. So I think there's a lot of good and a lot of bad from it. I totally agree with the fact that the average player who does not have an unlimited bankroll or stakes, people paying him to play, no advertising dollars, things of that nature, which I'm one of them. And I'm probably more willing to spend a little bit more than other guys, but it's still a finite amount, whereas Daniel Negreanu, it's almost an infinite amount. So that is bad.
Yeah.
It's good for the casinos, which I will say, in all my years being in and around poker and in this industry in general, casinos typically, they don't care about poker. Yeah. I talked to a poker manager once about, however it came up, and he was like, think about it this way. He's like, poker table at the casino rips what, like $150 an hour?
Well, not
Let's
even.
just say
140, whatever, 150.
$150 for easy math. He goes, you got to pay the dealer, you got to pay all the security, you got to pay the floor guy, you got to pay brushes, you got to pay waitresses, all of those things.
Tables, cages.
All of that stuff to go through there. Whereas, let's just say $150 rake at a casino, that's the most optimal. Their dealers are the best. They're flying through. They got automatic shufflers. That's like the nut high.
Right.
You're really not getting more than $150 an hour.
No.
Certainly not getting $150 an hour at charity.
Never.
Take that into account, a slot machine that pays out a percentage, and you've got 0 people to do anything on. It's just literally the one-armed bandit never calls in sick. It works the whole time. It doesn't need breaks. It doesn't complain.
It costs electricity, and it costs a few guys to go pay out hand pays. That's it. And it costs a gaming spot.
And then I remember one time at the Hollywood in Aurora, we were playing 5-10 limit. This is how long ago it was. There was no limit was offered in Illinois. It was just limit poker, right? and we're playing 5-10 limit. I think King was there. And they closed the table down because some guy wanted to play $2,500 a hand blackjack, and they have limited gaming spots, and they couldn't play it, and they had to close something down. So they closed down a freaking 5-10 game. Put all of us back on the list.
Because they don't care.
Because they don't care.
Right.
It's not that they don't care. It's just that
it's more
in
profitable.
The scheme of things, it's not as profitable as slot machines or table games. Those games are significantly better, and poker players kind of get the shaft. So, yes, it's bad. Re-entries are bad for the everyday Joe player. But these bigger tournaments happen. These bigger prize pools happen. The casinos are much happier because they're getting a bigger, fatter rake because they're raking every single time the players come in.
And they can market these huge prize pools,
Correct.
million guarantee, and they can get a guy
which
who's going to come in.
Which they can't do.
Right. If there's not re-entries.
And again, when you think about it the other way, if you were going to play in a tournament like, whatever we keep saying, 1,500, wouldn't it be nice to be able to bring 4,500 and be able to know for sure that I'm going to be able to play for a 2-day tournament?
Yeah.
And play for a little bit more than just, what if you go there, get aces to first hand, go all in and lose?
Right. Then what?
I flew to Vegas. I got a hotel room for 5 days. I'm supposed to hang out?
Yeah.
Like, granted, you can play other games. You play cash games. You play another tournament.
Sure.
But, I came for this tournament.
Mm-hmm. I guess I see that side of it.
So it's, there's always two sides to the coin, or, grass is always greener kind of thing. But I think when people just be like, re-entries are so bad. Yes, there are negatives, but then you got to be like, all right, well, let's look at the positives too,
right.
and do they balance one another out? And I think that they definitely, the disadvantage that Joe Pro is going to have, the disadvantage that the average guy is going to have playing against pros that are way more heavily backed and have a much bigger advantage over them. But the problem is, if everybody was on equal playing ground, the main event would be a lot smaller, right?
Correct.
The prize pool would be smaller. That dream of my 1,500 turning into $1 million is never going to happen unless it's a re-entry tournament.
Yep.
And I probably wouldn't have played that $1,500 tournament because it had a $500,000 guarantee, which they crushed. But if it didn't have that guarantee of the $500,000, I wouldn't have done it. And they wouldn't have put that $500,000 guarantee on there unless the casino knows, and we're just going to fire it. All these guys are just going to keep trying to fire because the overlay almost makes it
not happen.
Yeah, now it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
No.
If the president comes out and says, everybody go buy gas today because gas prices are going to go up tomorrow, everybody's going to go out and buy gas, and then tomorrow the gas price is going to go up. You know why? Because we're out of gas because everybody in the same day went out and got the same gas, and now demand's up and supply's down.
Right.
Basic economics, which you have a degree in.
I do.
I have a degree in.
All right.
2 economics degrees talking about gambling.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome, actually.
Should be profitable, one would think.
I could draw some fun graphs, but that's about it. I think I've officially forgotten everything that I ever learned.
You can move the demand curve and the supply curve and stuff. Right? Price goes up.
Gun to my head, I
down.
think I might freak, but yeah, I would rather.
Do you remember which?
I would rather play Daniel Negreanu where he's got 10 bullets versus my 1 than try to draw some wicked graphs.
Do you remember if supply's on the X or the Y axis? You couldn't even remember that?
I don't know. It's been a long time.
That's on top.
If I had to do it.
Bottom.
Yeah, if I had to do it, I could do it.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're banging out at about 30 minutes here. So let's do – we're going to go with re-entry tournaments are, I think enough good that outweighs the bad where it's not –
But
there's no negative
so
EV.
much good is from the
self-fulfilling side.
No, I think so much good is on the casino side that the poker players really don't care about. That's some of the good we discuss. I mean, obviously we have a poker room, so we're going to look at it one way.
Right.
But Dan Negreanu doesn't really care at all about binions
and he's really the one who's going to get the advantage. He's the ultimate pro. He's the Hall of Famer. He's got money.
But
he's
he understands that it's bad for the game, which his advantage
in the long run.
Right. And his advantage over this tournament of being able to buy in 5 times isn't as big as his advantage as if there's fish in the tournament, if there's fish in the poker world for 20 more years. He's long term and
well, that's the other problem.
He's a macro. He's not micro.
You get a fish that has come into a little bit of money and they fire all of their money into one tournament. It's yeah, that's great for that one tournament. Yeah. But if you'd have spread his $1,500 bullets into 5 different tournaments, does the poker economy benefit from that?
Well, maybe he's in 5 different locations and he I don't know. Pros and cons, but in general, I think that the weaker players are going to have a disadvantage in these big tournaments.
But the dream of making
more money
is
still there.
Yeah. That's good. I like it. So
Like I had a really super quick example in the 1650 HPT I played. It was the last hand before dinner break, last chance to buy in. I had built on my 30K stack to like 70K, and this is a big tournament for me. It's 1650. I don't really play tournaments, and that's a lot. And it was 250K to first. And last hand, like this pro-y guy who I've seen around in all the circuits and know, he was a little bit on tilt, and like I raised with ace jack under the gun, and he just piled like 20,000 in on the last hand, like way above the blinds. Just because, he's just going to rebuy for 40K or a new stack or double up. And it comes back around to me with ace jack, and I go into the tank, and I was like, gosh, I mean, this kind of sucks. It's not really that good of a hand. He just free raised all in. But I kind of knew what he was like, his mentality of things, because I picked up on that. I called, and he had 7-6 offsuit, and I flopped a jack and just won, and I knocked him out. And he's like, all right, rebuy.
I'll see you tomorrow.
But he's like, but, he still put me to like the weird test and in a spot where this was only my only bullet, and, and it's just like that's the example I can think of where he almost got me to fold a way better hand just because
you didn't want to risk your tournament life
right, and he
on
didn't care.
A guy. Right. It's hard to play Russian roulette with somebody when they don't care
about life,
and you do.
Yeah.
I know it's a very extreme thing to say, but that's the truth.
Right.
These guys are like, I don't care. I'm willing to rip this thing 5 more times, even though I know one of the 6 has got a bullet in here.
Yeah, let's go.
I'm good, and you're like, ooh, no,
I don't even want to do it once.
I don't even want to do it once.
Right.
Even if you gave me a 1 out of 10.
Yeah, I'd be like,
Like a 50-50, one gun's got a bullet out of 6 and one gun's got nothing. I'm still like, I'm out. No, take it. Take my money. I'll wait until I get a better spot.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess if you take these things into account, you can play better poker. But again, you might have a bad beat story to tell us tomorrow.
I hope not.
I hope not either.
Yes, not
that
poker.
Does it up
Gambling.
Gambling.
No, Chop It Up podcast.
Just chop it up.
Yeah.
Chop it up, folks.
That's it.
Wait, is that it? Like that's the end? Or
I'm done.
Are you done?
I'm not going to talk anymore.
You going to watch the squirrels again? All right, $50 says that squirrel gets the other one before we hit.
I'm in.
It's our first on-air bet.
They're gone.
They're not there.
They're
We'll
gone.
wait until next week to see what happens. Thanks, everybody. Bye.